Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. It's Football at 4.
Josh Hennick filling for Mike Gill here on a Thursday edition of the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Counting down the days of the Eagles arriving at training camp. Seems like the Jets are already in camp. Today's Football at 4 with Andrew DiCecco. We go week-by-week division previews, and this week we have the NFC West. Important division, because that is the division of the team that the Eagles beat in the conference championship last season, and the 49ers are still considered one of the best teams in the NFC. So to get into all that and more right now, Andrew DiCecco, Eagles writer and NFL draft writer for InsideTheBirds.com, and joins us every Thursday here on Football at 4 on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Andrew, welcome back in. How you doing today?
Good, Josh. How are you?
Doing pretty good. So let's start with just a big picture of the NFC West. Obviously, a lot of people feel like divisions like the AFC East and the NFC East are good divisions. What is, in your mind, the depth of the NFC West?
Well, I mean, I think it's pretty top-heavy, Josh. I think the 49ers and the Seahawks are the Titans of the NFC West. And then, you go through, the Rams have some strong points in their roster, but their defense leaves a lot to be desired. And the Cardinals are really a work in progress as well. So I think that you have two heavy hitters at the top, and then the rest are kind of going to fade out.
So let's get to the first heavy hitter, that being the 49ers, because that's the team a lot of Eagle fans, they're curious about. You know, they got Javon Hargrave this offseason. They have kind of a quarterback competition. Nobody really knows who's going to start week one for them. Let's start on the offensive side of the ball. Brock Purdy coming off an injury. Trey Lance coming off an injury. Sam Darnold in camp. What is the state of the 49ers offense?
Well, I think it's going to be really interesting to see what direction they go under offensive coordinators Chris Forster and Clint Kubiak. Obviously, you mentioned the three quarterbacks there. It behooves the 49ers to make sure that first and foremost Brock Purdy is healthy before you throw him out there. But all things equal, I think that he will be the quarterback opening day, or at least when he is healthy. And because of, coming off the season that he had last year, seemingly out of nowhere, I thought he really did a nice job piloting the offense. And you really don't have to do too much when you have a receiving core like Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, Jawan Jennings. Danny Gray is back this year. He was a speedster from SMU who they drafted in the third round last year, really underutilized, but I think he's really going to come into his own this year as a vertical threat. And Ronnie Bell, I liked him coming out of the draft. He was a seventh-round pick out of Michigan. He's there. I think he's going to be their returner. George Kittle is probably one of the best all-around tight ends in the NFL. Running backs, you have Christian McCaffrey, you have Eli Mitchell. I think they complement each other really well. Mitchell being the more power-heavy running back. I think he's going to factor in short yards and goal line situations. And then McCaffrey, of course, is the do-it-all running back, who is the great equalizer. And then on the offensive line, you have arguably one of the best tackles in the league in Trent Williams. So I think they have a lot of components in place to be one of the preeminent teams in the NFL once again this year.
I got to ask you, because, Andrew, you also cover the NFL draft. This is like the fall of Trey Lance. I mean, this guy was this highly regarded prospect, and now in 2023, he's like the forgotten man out there.
Yeah, well, when you get outplayed and, you sort of, it's what have you done for me the last 5 minutes? That's the way the NFL seems to work these days. And at least in San Francisco, it's going to be hard for Lance to overcome what Purdy's done. Purdy's demonstrated more than Lance has in his career. So I think that Trey Lance would benefit more from a fresh start. It's going to be really tough to overcome this hurdle. And then Sam Darnold is a veteran who's seen it all. Not really going to propel the offense to greater heights, but I think that he's a steady guy who can navigate in the interim should Brock Purdy have to miss any time.
Andrew, flipping over to the defense, I mentioned they added Javon Hargrave. Obviously, the rich get richer, but different defensive coordinator this year. DeMeco Ryans is now in Houston. Talk about the 49ers defense.
Yeah, it's going to be under Steve Wilkes this year. But, I mean, you look at Nick Bosa, Javon Hargrave, Eric Armstead. That's just the starting unit. Then you have Javon Kinlaw, former first-round pick out of South Carolina State. Then you have Clelin Ferrell. Many may remember he was drafted in the first round, overdrafted by the Mike Mayock regime with the Raiders a number of years ago. Linebackers, they have arguably the best linebacking duo in the NFL in Dre Greenlaw and Fred Warner. Really potent second level. It's going to be hard to get anything past those guys. And then their defensive backfield, they have guys like Diamador Lenore, who's hung around for a number of seasons as a starter. Charvarius Ward's an underrated player who I really like with the Kansas City Chiefs. He's really found his footing as a starter. It took a little bit of a while for him to really break through, but I thought that I think he's really come into his own. Isaiah Oliver comes over from Atlanta. He's the nickel corner there. He's really inconsistent, but when he has been on his game, I thought he's been a really intriguing young player. So it's going to be interesting to see how he does in a new scenery with new coaching, working with his skill set. The safety tandem of Tayshaun Gibson. Tayshaun Gibson has been around forever. I remember him with the Jacksonville Jaguars. I believe he was also with the Browns, and now he's with the Niners. And then you have Toaloa Hufanga, who is also one of the better safeties in the NFL. So I really like the 49ers defense. I think that they'll be able to win some games where they don't have to score, 20 or 30 points. I think the defense is that good where it can bottle up teams on their own.
Andrew DiCecco joining us here on the Elite Acura Hotline here on Football at 4 on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill. Andrew, let's head up northwest. Seattle Seahawks, interesting team last year. Geno Smith, way above expectations. They found a way to have a good year last year. So did the Seahawks improve enough from last year to this year to be a playoff contender again?
Yeah, I think in a big way. Everyone talks about the 49ers, and rightfully so, but I may even like what the Seahawks have done and where they stand right now as a team even more, if you can believe that. I mean, it all hinges upon Geno Smith and if he's going to be able to. Was that last season an aberration, or is that sort of the player that he can be, and he's in the right situation to thrive, right? I mean, we need to see if lightning can strike twice here, but I mean, the running back situation, Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. Charbonnet was drafted at UCLA. He'd be a starter on most teams. He's going to be working in concert with Walker, who had a really good rookie season. He does have a little bit of an injury history, Walker, so Charbonnet may have a more prominent role than the surface may suggest. Wide receivers, you have DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. How about drafting Jackson Smith and Jigba as your third receiver? I mean, he was a first-round talent. He would have been a number 2 on most teams. Will be a number 3 here. Their offensive line that's gotten steadily more sturdier over the years. You have Charles Cross at left tackle, who they drafted in the first round in 2022, and Abe Lucas on the right side as the bookend tackle, who they drafted in 2022 in the third round. So that's always been one of their sore spots, their trench play, and sort of being able to be dominated in the trenches. I think they're working towards solidifying that area. And then on the tight end, you have a multi-level player in Noah Fant. We'll see if he's able to really live up to his billing. He was a really highly regarded player coming out of Iowa. So that's the Seattle offense.
Can Geno Smith be better with the offensive additions this year? Like, is there another level Geno Smith can go to, or do you think that last year, Andrew, was the best of Geno Smith?
I mean, I think that was the best of Geno Smith, but I mean, if the Seahawks get that version of him, they're going to challenge the 49ers for, divisional supremacy there. And I think that adding someone like Zach Charbonnet to give you a 2-headed rushing attack is really going to ease some of the pressure from Geno. Adding Smith and Jigba, who has a little bit of a different body type compared to Tyler Lockett. So they have 3 receivers with different dimensions. I think that's also going to help. And then also solidifying that offensive line and getting those pieces in place, providing a protection, because he's not somebody that he's not a Jalen Hurts back there. Let's just say that. He's not somebody that could be able to mask deficiencies on the offensive line. And then adding, you have Noah Fant there. I think that there's so many different pieces, intriguing pieces and ways that they could deploy these guys differently that are really going to help him. And I don't know that he's going to have to do more than he did last year because the offense is a lot better.
Andrew, talk about the Seahawks defense. Obviously, football fans remember a decade ago it was the Legion of Boom. It was all those star players on the side of the ball. Now, today's Seahawks team doesn't have the star power, but they still have talent over there.
Yeah, bringing over Draymond Jones from Denver. Jaron Reed's still there. Boye Mafe was a second-round pick last season in 2022. He's a reserve. Cam Young, they drafted in the fourth round from 2023, just a few months ago. He's a player that you don't have to necessarily throw him in there right away, but he has some talent that they can develop. Linebacker Darryl Taylor, Jordan Brooks, who is, I believe, his third or fourth season out of Texas Tech. He was somebody that rose up draft boards, really athletic player. Bobby Wagner's there. Devin Bush is there. They drafted Derek Hall out of Auburn in the second round in 2023. So they have an amalgam of linebackers there that I think that they'll find the right pairing, but they also have some pretty solid reserves there as well to throw at teams. And the cornerback situation, we haven't even discussed this, but I don't know that it has been really discussed throughout this offseason, but Devin Witherspoon and Reek Woolen can comprise arguably the top cornerback duo in the NFL by season's end if, Woolen's able to replicate his success from his rookie season, which, he was up there with Sauce Gardner as the top two rookie corners, and Witherspoon, how quickly he transitions to the NFL. I had him as my top-rated corner in the draft, and so to have those two, it's an embarrassment of riches on the perimeter. Kobe Bryant is a solid nickel corner, and Michael Jackson from Miami. Not, that's a player that I think he's bounced around quite a bit, but he's a solid backup on the perimeter there. He can also contribute as a safety. I liked him. I saw him at the Shrine Bowl a few seasons ago. Their safety situation, they have Jamal Adams, Quandre Diggs, Julian Love, and Joey Blunt, who was an undrafted free agent in 2022 out of Virginia. I followed his career extensively through college, as I'm sure you would expect, and I really like what he can do. Not overly athletic, but a really smart and player with tons of intangibles. So they have a lot of depth there on the back end.
They also got a lot of names. Michael Jackson and Kobe Bryant. It's not who people think of. It's totally different people out there in Seattle. Before we move on from the Seahawks, I want to ask you, Andrew, Pete Carroll is in his 70s now. What is your perspective on him as the Seahawks head coach at this point in his life?
I think that, if last season was any indication, I think he's still got plenty left in the tank. He's somebody that I think is an innovative coach. I don't think the game has passed him by or anything like that. I don't think that his beliefs and ideologies are antiquated. And I think when he reaches that level, he'll know it. And the NFL, he'll know it. And I think that he is the type of coach that would bow out rather than, get taken to school by some of the up-and-coming head coaches and as the NFL continues to evolve. But right now, I think that he's got a firm handle on things, still a leader of men, and still, moving the Seahawks in the right direction.
Going from one Super Bowl winning coach, Pete Carroll, to another, Sean McVay, the Rams are a conundrum because it felt like they had so many injuries last year that people forget that wasn't the only reason why the Rams were a losing team last year. They lost a lot of players from the Super Bowl team, the injuries and free agency. So what are the Rams a couple of years removed from a championship?
Yeah, they're a shell of what they once were, Josh. You have at the center of everything, you have Matthew Stafford, the running back situation of Cam Akers, who started off really slow last season. Many wondered if he was going to be even waived, but he's their starting running back as we stand right now. Kyron Williams backs him up. Darrell Henderson was always somebody that's lurking and cutting into Cam Akers' touches or factoring into the equation in the backfield in some form or fashion. He's a free agent right now, and last I heard, he had a workout with the Patriots, so we'll see what they have there. But if Akers isn't the guy, you would think that Darrell Henderson would be somebody that they want to bring back into the fold. Wide receiver, Cooper Kupp, Van Jefferson. Puka Nacua is a player who I really like coming out of BYU, 6'2", 205. They got him in the fifth round, which I thought was tremendous value. I think he could find his way in the starting rotation. DeMarcus Robinson's there, good veteran guy, journeyman, was with the Chiefs, was with the Ravens. They drafted Steve Avila, the left guard, or the guard. I think he's going to play on the left side. They drafted him at a TCU, and he was one of those players that I thought was one of the surefire plug and play type of guys. And he's an interior mauler, and I think he's going to provide an instant boost to that offensive line. So I'm interested to see what he's able to do there. And then Tyler Higbee is their tight end. But, aside from that, I mean, they don't have, aside from Cooper Kupp, I should say, there's not a lot of guys there that move the needle and make that offense being able to, go toe-to-toe with the other two teams that we've mentioned.
You mentioned Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp. I mean, those are two guys who are pretty good players, but they're on a not-so-good team. For those out there who might be wondering, about those guys' upcoming season, do you expect a bounce-back year for Stafford and Kupp, or do you think that they will be bogged down by the lack of talent around them?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they could be continuing to trend downward, unfortunately, because I think that it's going to be a byproduct of the lackluster talent around them. I don't think the defense is going to afford them a lot of stops this year, and I just think that they're constantly going to be one of those teams that you wonder what happened. How do they fall from grace so fast and drastically?
What is Sean McVay at this point? Is he still a guy who can maybe weather the storm and get to the other side and rebuild this organization, or do you think the clock is ticking as the sand glass running out of sand for him in the NFL?
Yeah, I mean, I think the sundial's turned over, as far as his career goes. I mean, this is somebody that has flirted with the idea of retirement, if we remember. So, I mean, I don't know how long he plans on staying at the party, so to speak, but I have to think that it probably won't be long, especially if the season kind of goes wide left, like many sort of are forecasting right now, given just the talent of the two heavyweights in their division and just the lack of talent and a byproduct of poor drafting and allocation of resources. It's really all coming to the forefront right now.
Yeah, the Rams are the poster child now for what happens if you go all in for 1 year and how it can go seriously wrong along the way. Andrew DiCecco joining us here from InsideTheBirds.com on the Elite Acura Hotline on today's Football at 4. We'll wrap up the NFC West with arguably what might be not just the worst team in the division, but they might be one of the worst teams in the entire NFL this year. The Arizona Cardinals, they do not look like a team that is going to win more than 4 or 5 games this year, Andrew.
It's hard to see, looking at their schedule. I think that Jonathan Gannon's going to get off to a rough start in his first year as a head coach. His defensive coordinator, of course, was from Philadelphia, the young Nick Rallis, who was their linebackers coach last season and the season before that. He's going to have his hands full with his unit, but we'll get to that in a second. Kyler Murray is a very polarizing player, but he has decent players at receiver, and Marquise Brown, Rondale Moore, if he can stay healthy. Greg Dortch is a player who's in a similar mold as Rondale Moore. Zach Pascal comes over from Philadelphia, not a burner, a good possession receiver who can really provide some assets as a blocker. They drafted Michael Wilson in the 3rd round this past April. Zach Ertz is there, and he's going to have to be a security blanket for Kyler Murray, and if they want that offense to be functional at all. And I really like them drafting Paris Johnson in the 1st round. I thought that they really needed to provide some help to their quarterback in Kyler Murray because he is the face of their franchise offensively.
We should mention Paris Johnson's father also played for the Cardinals, so a little interesting history there in Arizona. What is Kyler Murray, though? What is Kyler Murray at this point in his career, Andrew? Because this was the number 1 overall pick. He was this phenomenal talent coming out of college. And the question was, is he too small? Can he play in the NFL long term? Will he get injured? There's been questions about him and his commitment to studying and preparing for games. So what is your perspective on Kyler Murray at this point in his career?
Well, let me put it to you this way. I don't know that he's going to get any better than he already is right now. Right. And by saying that, I don't know that he's somebody that can elevate an offense. I think that he is someone that needs, I don't even know that you had DeAndre Hopkins you had, I don't want to use talent as an excuse. His body language is poor. When things don't go his way, he seems to go south. And as a leader, you cannot do that. And I just don't know, I don't know what his mental toughness is like. And I don't know how he's going to handle being coached by Jonathan Gannon. I mean, I don't know how Gannon's going to be how he's going to coach that. Is he going to approach that with tough love? And you're the quarterback of this team. You have to make it work, or or what the approach to that's going to be. But I don't view Kyler Murray as a preeminent quarterback in this league as somebody that can elevate an offense and be in the MVP conversation. I think that he kind of is what he is, and he needs a lot of talent around him in order to thrive.
You mentioned Jonathan Gannon. That's where I'll finish up with the Cardinals with you, Andrew. Gannon, year one as a head coach. You know, he's obviously already had a weird offseason with the way he got hired, the weird comments he's made in his time in Arizona. Obviously, it looks like he's going to have a losing year his first year. What do you think the rope is going to be? Like, how long of a rope does he have to be the coach in Arizona before they're able to turn things around? Like, will he be the coach there when they eventually become a winning team, or do you think he'll be a casualty of not being able to make it across the bridge?
That's a great question and a fair one. Well, it all depends, to be honest with you, how he's able to lead. Is he going to be able to keep the locker room together? Because we do anticipate the season going south. I mean, how are a lot of the veterans, are they going? Is his voice going to resonate amongst the locker room? If he loses the team and the season goes on hits the skids, I mean, he could be a one and done head coach. But if they're committed to his vision and they believe in what he's saying and his actions and his approach and his commitment to his job, then I think that he will be able to stick around for another season and have the opportunity to see it through and get the team headed in the right direction. But I think it's the ultimate indicator is going to be how the team responds to adversity this season under his leadership.
Andrew, before I let you go, obviously, who do you think is going to win the NFC West and why?
I think the 49ers are going to do it. I like their veteran contingent. I like what Kyle Shanahan's able to do offensively and the creativity there. And they've just done it before. And I think that there's something to be said for that. That being said, Josh, I think it's a lot closer than many expect. I mean, I had a tough time. I was going back and forth between the Seahawks and the 49ers because I think the Seahawks actually have a roster, particularly on the defensive side with depth, as far as depth's concerned, to really be a contender this year with the 49ers. But that being said, I think the 49ers are just too physical, and they have the veteran experience, and especially at the coaching level. So I think that's who I'm going with.
He's Andrew DiCecco, Football at Forward, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Check out all of Andrew's coverage of the Eagles in the NFL Draft over at InsideTheBirds.com. Andrew will be back next week with Mike Gill when they will preview the NFC North. And, of course, you can follow Andrew on Twitter. It's his name, Andrew DiCecco, one word on Twitter. Andrew, great stuff today. Appreciate you jumping on.
You bet. Talk soon.